It's quite possible that you've heard this morning's readings before. The story of the three visitors to Abraham and Sarah, perhaps better known for the verses that follow this morning's reading, where we hear about Sarah bursting into laughter at the news that at her somewhat advanced age she is due to have a baby. Or indeed the story of Martha and Mary that's become a shorthand to understand someone's character. Are you a Martha or a Mary? To find out how people respond to busyness and pressure. And sometimes it's very easy to pass over familiar passages and in our confidence, born out of familiarity, to speed past and not notice further messages they contain that might be speaking into current situations. This nearly happened to me as I looked at the two passages from the lectionary for this Sunday, and I thought, oh, good. I thought, passages that show different ways to listen to God: laughter, busy distraction, and avid listening. That can be the thrust of my talk. How do you listen to God? But then I looked deeper and noticed something else that's perhaps missed because of the distractions of laughter and busyness. And that something is hospitality. In the Gospel reading, the idea of hospitality might appear to be unimportant, especially as Jesus rebukes Martha for being so concerned with the preparations of hospitality. But interestingly, we're not told that Jesus says, "Don't worry, I'll go without supper this evening." So I don't think this is saying there's no place for hospitality in the reading. In the Genesis reading, the centrality of hospitality is clearer. We have details of what Abraham and Sarah do to prepare refreshment, some elements such as the water to clean the visitors' feet, reminding us of the Last Supper. And then interestingly, Abraham and Sarah stand nearby whilst the visitors eat. But what about Mary? I think she too is showing hospitality, but more of that in a moment. For now, among the various things these passages contain, I want us to focus on hospitality. As I said, the hospitality shown by Abraham and Sarah is perhaps the most obvious example. They offer the opportunity for the visitors to freshen up and rest. They bake fresh bread for them. They choose some of the best meat. They offer curds or cheese and milk. Don't know about you, but I'm beginning to feel a little bit hungry. But interestingly, neither Abraham nor Sarah sit with their guests. Now, there are reasons for this, which time doesn't allow us to explore, but for now it's just interesting to note that the hospitality they offer is one of provision and service, whilst they stand back and keep any interaction at a distance. So why is Martha apparently criticised by Jesus? After all, she was only trying to get things right so that he would receive refreshment whilst he rested at her home. Isn't she trying to do what Abraham and Sarah did? Our reading this morning tells us that Martha was distracted by the preparations. In the original Greek, it says that she was distracted by the diakonion, which means service, and indeed is the word from which we get deacon. And I think this is why Jesus speaks as he does to Martha. He's not criticizing her for serving, but that in her distraction about service, she's forgotten why she's doing it. Interestingly, Luke places today's gospel reading immediately following the story of the Good Samaritan, in which we hear about the priest and the Levite, who were so concerned about keeping themselves ritually clean, and so don't want to risk contamination through contact with a bleeding and possibly dead person. Contact with blood or a dead person would involve ritual cleansing at the temple. They're so concerned about this that they cross the road, and in so doing forget the whole purpose of God's commandment in Leviticus to love their neighbour as themselves. In being so busy trying to comply with one part of the law about ritual cleanliness, they've omitted another part about showing love to others. And I think this is Jesus' concern for Martha. He's not saying, don't show service, don't show hospitality, but instead is reminding her of the bigger picture of why she's doing this. Rather, as sometimes people are so focused on making sure that everything is perfect for the dinner party or birthday celebration or wedding reception, that they forget that the reason for these is to enjoy and celebrate with friends and loved ones. If the champagne's not the perfect temperature, does it matter if people are enjoying themselves? For Martha, she seems to become so wrapped up in worry that she's not able to enjoy just being with Jesus. Out of her concern to serve properly, she's lost the joy of being able to provide for and serve others. The serving should not be a burden, but something done joyfully, out of love, and not out of distraction and worry. And what about Mary? Earlier I said she is also showing hospitality. How is she doing that if she's leaving all the work to her sister? Well, Mary is listening to what her guest is saying. She's offering him her attention. She's showing him that what he says matters to her. Sometimes the greatest gift that we can give to someone is our undivided attention, to focus on them as though nothing else matters. Nothing else is distracting us or is more important than letting them tell us what they need to tell us in that moment. This too is a form of service. This too is a form of hospitality. And so, I wonder, what kind of hospitality do we offer as a church? Is ours the kind of hospitality that offers provision and service from a distance without engaging? Or are we so busy making sure that we get the service right that we forget why we're doing it? Or are we generous in listening, but so focused on this that we're neglecting the provision of physical things that refresh and assist? We're very fortunate to live in a pleasant part of the country with a general feeling of well-being and affluence. And yet there is need all around us. Sometimes very well hidden and so easy to miss. But it is here. More people locally are needing the services of the food bank. Wendover has previously been a net contributor to the food bank, donating more than is used by the local community. But that is changing. People might appear to be well off with nice houses, but some of these people have lost their jobs through COVID and the economic upheavals of recent years. Whilst some of our local employers are struggling to find people to fill vacancies and so satisfy demand for their services, but unfortunately it's not always possible to match these vacancies with those who've lost their jobs. We've also noticed an increase in the cost of things. Food prices on the rise, filling the car with fuel is more expensive. How will we pay the electricity or gas bills this year? People in our community are lonely. And some of the global issues that might have seemed far away are now closer to home here in Wendover, as we are joined by families who've moved here from Syria, Afghanistan and Ukraine to avoid and escape the atrocities in their homelands. What kind of hospitality do we offer as a church? How do we respond to the need around us? I suspect we need to think about being a combination of Abraham and Sarah and Martha and Mary. We need to be providing refreshment and food. We need to be providing service to make sure that needs are met, but without being distracted that we forget why we're doing it. We need to be listening to those who need to talk. But this can seem so daunting. So much needs to be done. I can't do it all. But that is why we need to think about we and not just I. Each of us can do something, even if it might appear to be only a little. As Edmund Burke, the 18th century politician and former MP of Wendover, said, "Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little." If we collect all the things each individual I can offer, collectively we as a church can serve together to help address some of the needs in our community. What kind of hospitality do we want to offer as a church? Do we want to be a church at the heart of our community? Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of these, the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did for me.
Obviously, it is going to get very hot, or that's what they're telling us. So please be looking out for people that you know, perhaps around you, that just need a closer eye to make sure that everybody's hydrating and not getting too hot. Here will be open. It's probably one of the coolest places in Wendover. So do come and spend time just in here quietly. Encourages others to do that as well. So we're supposed to be having year 6 from the junior school come for their leavers service tomorrow afternoon, whether that will happen or not. But be praying for them because they're in their last 2.5 days of primary school. So it will be lovely if they can come, but we will see. Trying to think what else there is. We are, for the time being, not able to use our contactless machine. The company have gone into administration and we're just not sure what's going to be happening. So for today there are baskets available, and from next week we're going to restart passing the basket around. Very aware that quite a number of you give by the parish giving scheme, and therefore it's done by a direct debit, so just pass the basket on. But we thought we would restart that, particularly with not being able to use the device there. So next week is our final week of 9 and 10:45, and then for 5 Sundays from the 31st we'll have our summer services at 10 o'clock. And we're going to be having a sermon series looking at Hebrews and our relationship with God. So please be looking out for that.